and then you can jump right into E-Tank. That would be great.
All right.
So whenever you're ready.
I got to stand up again.
That's totally cool. I like it.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Matzenbacher, and I'm here today to talk to you about filling the emotional tanks of your players, or E-Tank for short. But first, I want to give you an idea of who I am, where I've come from, and what kind of brought me here today. I was a three-sport athlete in high school and got the opportunity to be able to go play baseball and basketball in college my freshman year. Luckily enough for myself, I was drafted by the Florida Marlins my freshman year in junior college. Kind of gave me the idea of maybe I need to stop playing basketball. So I decided, you know what? I probably need to hang up the sneakers. This baseball thing may be a good thing for me. And it was always a dream of mine to play professional baseball. But things didn't work out, and I ended up going to Creighton University after my sophomore year. Then I went back, came back home and finished off my college career at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, in Edwardsville, Illinois. And from there, I was drafted by the Arizona Diamondbacks and got to live out my dream of playing professional baseball. I ended up playing 5 years, reaching as high as AA. 4 of those years were spent with the Arizona Diamondbacks organization. And I played for a lot of great coaches in my college career and through professional baseball. And I learned a lot from all of them. And from there, I even started coaching when I was still playing. And I started coaching at my alma mater, Marissa Junior High School, junior high basketball, which gave me something to do in the winters when I was home from baseball and just working out and getting ready for spring training. So I started coaching. I absolutely fell in love with it. Fell in love with coaching. So I decided after my career ended in 2003, I said, well, there's no other better way to coach than be an educator. And I wanted to be around kids because that's what I truly enjoyed doing, even when I was playing, was being around kids and helping them and seeing that smile on their face when you help them to succeed or just make their day by signing a baseball. It meant the world to me. And I love being around kids. So I wanted to go into coaching. Fell in love with it, went into coaching. I've been coaching for approximately 14 years now. And I just recently stopped coaching because I've got 2 daughters at home. And obviously, family's important, and I want to spend time with them. I want to see my 5-year-old. I want to see her T-ball games. I want to see her gymnastics. And I even became a dance dad for a little while, which was fun, getting to go watch my daughter dance and everything else. And so it's been a roller coaster ride for me, throughout my collegiate career, playing professional baseball, and now getting to join the PCA and being able to be here for you guys. And I look now as you guys as my coaches. I'm your head coach, and I'm trying to help you guys out any way I can with your program, and that's why I'm here. And that's what's kind of brought me to the PCA. I love what they're about, and I've been doing basically a lot of this stuff as a coach through my coaching. Didn't even realize I was doing it. And a lot of you may be in the same boat that I'm in. You're doing things, and you didn't even realize it was part of what the PCA is about. So let's dive into what filling the emotional tank, and I'll use E-Tank as short going through the rest of the presentation, is for your players. So I'll ask you the first question I want to ask. What do you think an E-Tank is when it comes to your players?
I would say how they feel.
That's a good answer. You're on track with what we're talking about. And here at the PCA, we want to think of the E-Tank as the tank of your car, the gas tank of your car. Imagine you're going to travel from Philadelphia all the way across country in your car to San Francisco. You want to keep that tank pretty full. You don't want that light to come on about halfway there in the middle of Kansas, in the middle of nowhere where you can't see anything. It's not going to make you very comfortable, is it? You want to keep your tank full throughout that whole duration of that trip. Well, E-Tank is similar to that with your players. You want to keep their emotional tank as full as possible so that you can get the most out of your players. And that's what we're talking about. Now think about this. Here's a question I'm going to ask you. I want you to answer it now, but I'm going to give you the story later on in the presentation because I think it's something that you need to hear but I don't want to go into it too in depth right now. Do you think you can fill the emotional tanks of your players individually, or do you think that you can do it as a whole, as a group?
I think both.
Both is a good answer. Yes is a good answer. And I'll give you that story later on. It's about my state championship team that I coached back in Arizona in 2006. And it's a little story I want to give to you because I think it's important for you to hear it, because it's about a team. And that's what you're coaching. You're coaching a team. You're coaching individuals, but you're also coaching a team. And here at PCA, we think that Maya Angelou summed it up pretty good in a quote. And what she said is, she said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. That last part, people will never forget how you made them feel. That's what it's all about coaching. You want your players to remember how you made them feel, not necessarily what you told them. You want them to remember how you made them feel so that they can be successful. And that's what the E-tank is. You're filling that tank of your players so that they can be the best that they can be and give that full effort that you want to see every second they're on the floor. Whether it's your starters or your bench guys that come in for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, whoever they are. That's what you want. Now, I got a story for you about a kid that I coached, wasn't a starter. It was my first 2 years coaching junior high basketball in my alma mater. And I'd coached this kid for 2 years. His 8th grade year, he wasn't a kid that played a lot. You know, he played when the score was out of hand. You know, either we were up big or down big, and that's usually when he played. But he knew that was his role. He knew what his role on the team was. And he was that kid that every single day in practice would make me laugh. We've all had that kid on our team. Makes you laugh every single day. No matter what's going on, he made me laugh. I'd be getting frustrated. He'd say something, and I'd relax. You know, so in a way, I guess he was filling my emotional tank during practice, I guess. He didn't even know it. But with Colton, he was the type of kid, he had a great shot on him. He could shoot it, but he was a heavy-set kid that just couldn't get up and down the floor against fast-paced teams that we played on a regular basis. So the story is, we go and we're playing our arch rival, New Athens, and we've got a chance to win the conference. And the other team is literally double teaming my best player. They're leaving a player wide open on the baseline constantly throughout the whole game. I've yet to have a kid that can knock down that shot. Well, Colton has hit that shot every single day in practice for us all year long. For 2 years, he's hit that shot. And I looked at my assistant coach and I said, guys, what do you think? You think I should get Colton, put him in there and see if he can hit that shot? And they both looked at me and said, hey, we need somebody to do it. And I said, well, he hits it every single day in practice. I know he can hit it. And I walked down there, sat down next to him, put my arm around him. And I said, Colton, I said, you know that shot you hit every single day in practice? He says, yeah. I said, you think you can go hit a couple of those for us and win this game? And he looked at me in a dead straight face and he goes, Coach, sure can. And just in that normal, yeah, sure can, Coach. Like he'd done it a million times. So I was like, all right, Colton, get in there. And he kind of looked at me and he's like, really? I said, yes, go. So he goes in the game, and there's only about 4 or 5 minutes left in the game. And it's a close game. I can't remember exactly if this was for the conference championship. I know they weren't going for the championship of the conference, but we had a chance to win the conference. But I can't remember if we had to win this game to win the conference or not. We had the chance to win the conference. And Colton goes in there, and sure enough, first ball comes to him, he catches it, boom, nails it. First shot. Next one he comes in, next pass down the floor, boom, he gets it, nails it. Well, now the other team starts guarding. Well, he's starting to struggle getting up and down the floor. So I had to take him out. And he came out, and we ended up winning the game by 3 points. So that story shows you that when you fill that emotional tank of your players, and I did that every day with him. He was always the positive type of kid. You know, he wasn't the kid that played a lot, But he made a difference on our team by, like I talked about in practice, making me laugh, filling my emotional tank, if you will. And that's the positive influences you can have on these kids. And then going back to that quote from Maya Angelou, people will never forget how you made them feel. The finishing of that story is 2 years after he graduated high school, I saw Colton. And he talked to me, and we did a normal chit-chatting, talking about how things were going and things like that, how school and stuff like that. And towards the end, he said, Coach, thank you for having the best year of my life when I played basketball for you in 8th grade. And that meant the world to me because I knew I made a difference in his life. He wasn't my stud. He wasn't my starter. He was a kid that barely played, but he felt like he was part of that team. And he won us a basketball game. He helped us win the conference, even though it was for 2 minutes. He helped us win a conference. And that's the things you can do when you make a difference and you fill those emotional tanks of your players. And that's what we want you to do here at PCA. It's for you to help get that relationship with your kids. Because granted, they're not going to remember what you say 20 years from now. They're not going to remember what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. Whether it's good or bad, they will remember. So getting back with the emotional tanks, what happens to athletes when their E-tank is empty? What do you guys think happens?
They get discouraged.
They get discouraged. That's a good one. What's another thing that could happen to them?
I think they pick on each other.
That can happen as well.
Mm-hmm.
Those are good answers. They become pessimistic. Their confidence, in a sense, goes down, if you will. They give up more easily. We've been there. We've seen that kid that turns the ball over a couple times and coach is screaming at him. You've all been at games. And all of a sudden now he can't make a shot, misses a layup, does this, gets yanked out of the game. What do you think that's going to do to the E-tank of your player? It's going to take it down a lot. So they give up. They're going to give up a little easier. And they're also become less coachable. You've been there. Talk about that kid that's had 2 or 3 turnovers. You're yelling at him. You take him out of the game, try to talk to him. Can you talk to him? It's very difficult. They don't want to hear what you're having to say right now because they're so focused on what they've done wrong, they're not worried about how they can fix it at that moment. So now let's go to what happens to athletes when their E-tank is full. What do you think happens to the athletes when their E-tank gets full?
I think they're fired up and ready to go.
You're right. Along with that, they're optimistic. They believe they can do it. And that's what we want. We want our kids to believe that they can do something. No matter how difficult it is, whether it's being 15 points down at the end of a game or being down by 7 runs in the 9th inning of a baseball game. We want them to believe till the last out's made or that horn goes off that they can win. And when their E-tanks are full, they're going to be optimistic, and you've got a chance. They're going to deal with adversity better. They make a turnover. Oh, okay, they're going to wipe it off, as we like to say. They're going to wipe it off. No biggie. I turned the ball over. Okay, next possession. Move on. And then also they're going to be more coachable. When kids are having success, have you noticed as coaches, they are a lot easier to talk to? You guys notice that? A lot easier to talk to them when they're successful than when they're not. Everybody wants to be around everybody when they're successful. But how many people do you know that they want to be around somebody when they're not successful? But now, how do you as a coach drain a player's E-tank? How can you drain their E-tank as a coach?
I think when you're hard on them, when you're yelling at them and picking on them for all the mistakes they're making.
You're right. There's a lot of ways as a coach you can drain their E-tank. Criticizing them consistently, correcting them every single step along the way, always getting on that player. I was that player when I was in high school. My coach was always on me. He was always on me, screaming at me, yelling at me. I don't know if I hardly ever heard him yell at somebody else. You can even hear it on some of the videos my dad had. Mox! 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 It's always me he was yelling at. Or I saw my coach one year. I saw my coach after high school, after I graduated and stuff like that. And I saw him one time, and I was playing baseball, and I said, Coach, why come you always yelled at me? Why was I the one you always yelled at? And he looked at me and said, because I knew you could handle it. Each of us has played with a coach like that. You know, they're going to get on somebody. Every coach is like that. I've been like that as a coach. Whether it's right or wrong, I've been like that as a coach. You know, I've always, had a kid. There's that kid I know I can get on a little bit more than the others because every kid's different. Every yours is different. So you've got to understand that. Some kids you can get on a lot more than others. You can criticize them and correct them more than you can other players. But you've got to understand which ones you can do that with and which ones you can't. Because you've got to still fill their emotional tanks as well. But you can be sarcastic. We as coaches, we're the bunch of biggest smart Alex there are. You know, we love to joke around. We've been there. I've been there as a coach. We love to joke around, have fun with our players and stuff like that. But that can also drain their E-tank, because that sometimes a kid can look at that as a negative. Ignoring a situation, ignoring something that might happen, can also drain your player's E-tank. And nonverbals. How would you feel as a coach and you're in the middle of a game or something like this, and you do something wrong, and the coach just kind of looks out and goes with a nonverbal? What other nonverbals could you think of? What's another nonverbal you could think of?
Like this.
Something like that. How about the coach that you see all the time, and I don't have the right shoes on for it, but how about the coach you see all the time beating his foot on the ground, pounding his foot into the ground? Everybody in the whole stadium can hear it if you're a big arena or something. Everybody can hear it. They hear it across town. He's stomping his foot so hard. That's another nonverbal that can discourage your kids and drain their E-tank. Now, on the flip side of that, how can you as a coach fill your players' E-tank?
You can encourage them. Tell them they're doing a great job.
That's another way. You're exactly right. Those are excellent examples. Be truthful with your players. Give them specific praise that you want them to know about. All right? Express appreciation for something they do well. When they give a great effort, they dive on the floor for a loose ball, they take a charge. To me, that's one of the biggest ways and quickest ways in a basketball game you can give praise is when you get your kids to learn how to take a charge. Because that can be a big game changer for you and your team. And let them know that. Give them that appreciation, that you appreciate the effort they're giving. Because that's truly what we want here at PCA and what you want as coaches. You want that effort out of your kids every second they're out there. That's what you want. Listen to your players. They're on the court for you. They should be an extension of you. I know when I had that state championship team in Arizona, my players would come to the bench and say, Coach, they're doing this. Can we try this? And there's times I'd say, yes, without a doubt, go ahead, try it. Let's try it. Let's see if it works. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I didn't think negatively of my players for that because I made choices that sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. But I was listening to them because they're on the floor and they can see more than we can see as coaches on the bench. So listen to your players. Listen to them. They're out there. And verbals. Give positive verbals to your kids. All right? Don't use those nonverbals that discourage them and drain their E-tank. Give a positive verbal to your players when they do something positive. Even if they make a mistake, give them a verbal that says, hey, it's okay. Wipe it off, as we've talked about before. All right? And that's what we want to do. And now I want to go back to that story I wanted to tell you about. Can you fill your players, since we've talked about emotional tanks, can you fill your players' E-tanks individually and as a whole, as a team? And the answer is yes. It's both. You can do both of those. And the example I have for you is during that state championship run that I had back in 2006, in the state of Arizona, I don't know how it works in the different states that you guys are from. In Illinois, it works where if we lose in the regional, you're done. But in Arizona, the way it worked, once you're in the regional, once you win that first game in the regional, you're in the state championship series. You're in the state tournament. The rest of that, after that first game in the regional, is all about seeding. So it doesn't necessarily matter where you end up. You're still in the state tournament. And we got to the regional championship game. We're playing a team that's beat us twice already. They ended up beating us a third time in the regional championship game. I had my point guard was hurt. He's playing left-handed, and he was a righty. He ended up scoring 20-something points. So it shows you the type of players I had. We had good players. And
that's Tom. You can finish
going
the
forward,
story.
And but going forward, we lost that game to a team the third time they beat us this year. So we go in the locker room, and all my kids, you've been there. You go in the locker room after a loss, and all your kids' heads are hanging. They're all just sitting there. They're beat up. Their emotional tanks were on E, every single one of them, because they thought their thinking was we were done. Our season was over. That was their thinking. But I knew all along. I knew from the start of the season we didn't have to win the regional to be in the state championship game. And that's why I came up. We had a saying in our locker room every day before the game, or at practice and at the games: 1, 2, 3 family, 4, 5, 6 conference champs, 7, 8, 9 state champions. Well, I went in the locker room, and I wasn't screaming and yelling. I wasn't mad. I knew we still had a chance to reach that ultimate last goal we had of winning a state title. We still had that opportunity. I wasn't mad. And I also knew that us being the 2 seed meant that the 1 seed, Mogollon, was going to be on opposite sides of the bracket of us. And if we were going to face them again, it would be in a state championship game for the 4th time that year. We'd have a chance at it. So I went in the locker room. My kids' heads are hanging, and I just said, guys, I said, what's going on? Why are you guys hanging your heads? We're okay. Well, Coach, they beat us 3 times. That's the 3rd time they beat us. I said, guys, we're fine. I said, what has been our motto all year long? I said, what? 1, 2, 3, what? I said, they said family. I said, we've stuck together all year long. 4, 5, 6, what? Conference champs. I said, did we win the conference? They said, yes. They said, yes. Sorry, I thought I turned that off.
Okay.
They said, yes. Okay. I said, we won the conference. I said, what's our ultimate goal? 7, 8, 9, what? And they all said it. I said, guys, we still have this. We're still in the state tournament. We have to win 4 games, and you guys are state champions. And my point guard sat up because he was kind of the leader of the team. He sat up, and you could see them all start getting a little more confidence in that their tanks were starting to get filled. And I didn't know what an E-tank was at the time. But looking back on it, it's exactly what I did. I filled every single one of their E-tanks all at one time, just by letting them know, guys, our ultimate goal of winning a state title is still there. So the reason I want to tell you that story is so that you understand that it's not just about filling the E-tank of your players individually. You can do it as a whole if you're given the opportunity to, and just embrace that opportunity to fill their E-tanks. Okay, I'm done.
All right. Well done.
That was much better than last time when I zipped through it in 10 minutes.
Yeah, that was much more fun too for me. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'm just looking through. So you almost got through the whole thing. There's not much left. The 5-to-1 ratio is a big chunk.
Yeah.
That you had left, and then there's a Phil Jackson video. I'm just looking at the slideshow just to see how far you got, and then the scenario. So there is a big chunk of it. That took you over 20 minutes. It was like 22 minutes there, and you do have a pretty big chunk of it left. One of the things that we're trying to really hit home with this workshop are the tools, so that the coaches, the stories are awesome. You set a great stage for this. You have great examples, and your energy is phenomenal. I love it. The tools, though, you want to make sure that you have time to go through some of these tools, because what you can do as a coach, what Brian, you can do, all their coaches can't do. And they look at you and they think, well, gosh, this guy played, pro. He's this great big athlete. Of course he can coach. How am I going to do it? So that's why I like to take these examples, these tools. So I would say that the other half of this is probably a good 5 minutes, if not more. So my first suggestion would be just to take those stories, keep the stories in there. If you tell a story and it take like the first story that you were talking about, it took you like 4.5 minutes to get through that story. Just cut it down. Yeah, cut it down. Cut it down to 2. Because, and it's amazing. Ruben actually did this for me because I tell long stories. He timed me doing a story one time, and my story was like 5 minutes long. And he's like, all right, now I want you to tell the same story in 2 minutes. And I was like, what do you mean? But you can do it. Like when you set a timer for yourself, you pick out the important parts and you just get to the point quicker. And it still tells a great story. And then he goes, I got it down to 2 minutes. I'm like patting myself on the back. And he goes, all right, now do it in 1. And I was like, what? Like, not that you have to do it in 1 at a workshop, but the point was that you can do the same story, give it justice in 1 minute. So that would be something I would suggest that you practice. Try that out, because I think your stories are good, Brian. And I love your energy. I love the way you put your arm around Colton. Like, this is what I did. That brings life to these workshops. That's where it's a difference between a lecture and a workshop, because you're actually showing like, this is what I did. And that coaches can connect with that. I mean, I can picture this kid Colton. I can picture exactly who he is. And I had a little girl named Casey, and Casey and Colton were the same kid. And like, I connected with that right away, you know? So I thought that was great. You asked a lot more questions this time, which was good. You brought me in, you got me thinking, don't be afraid to throw a question out there and have them discuss with each other. And then, sometimes you can bring it back and say, can I have a couple examples from what you guys talked about? And sometimes you don't have to. The value is just in them talking about it together. So it's a good way to get everybody in the room talking at once. And, sometimes, just having them stand up and talk to somebody is, that's just helpful too, to get the energy kind of flowing. I liked the idea. I love the point of filling individuals tanks and filling team tanks. And that's actually something that we bring out a lot in the positive motivation workshop, which is another one of our coaches workshops that we do. How do you fill the tanks of individuals? And then here are some tools to fill the tanks of the team. I don't actually think that you need to ask that question ahead of time. Like you kind of did a little preview of that story. I don't think you needed to do that. I think you could have gone through the E-Tank principle and then asked the question before your story, because you kind of gave us like a teaser, and I was like, okay, you're like, I'm going to tell you later about this story. Then you went into the story about Colton, and I'm thinking, is this the story he was talking about? Like, I was a little confused because I thought that was your story. And then I was like, okay, that wasn't his individual team story. And then later, so I don't know, it just seemed a little disjointed for me. So
I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, I would hold off on that. Let me see. Oh, I love the idea of role players. I mean, role players are a great way to fill tanks right there. You said Colton wasn't your strongest. He wasn't your best player. He had a great shot, but he didn't have the endurance to get down the field. He made you laugh. So, I mean, I think that is a great way as a coach to identify, how is this player valuable to your team? Every single player is valuable to your team. And as coaches, being able to identify that can be a huge tank filler right there. So I thought that was a good part that you put into. The other thing too, when you're telling a story, and this can cut out on some of your time too, don't worry about the details. Like you said, like, oh, I'm not sure if this was for the conference title. I don't remember if it was for the conference title or not. It might have been for the conference title. Nobody knows. Nobody cares. Yeah. So, I mean, it's good for you for accuracy, but they don't care if it's a state champion. Nobody's going to go to Carbondale, Illinois and look you up. So I think you're good there. I did like your story about the player coming back and about Colton, like coming back and thanking you for a great year. And I have a story that I use too, similarly. And I've had people come up to me afterwards and saying, that has to do with the very beginning of the workshop when you talk about your legacy, the Herm Edwards video that talks about how do you want to be remembered. That's a great place. I didn't realize that that's what I was going to be remembered for, by a kid that wasn't my stud player, but he came back and said, thanks for the best year, ever. So I think that's really important too, to talk about the role that as coaches, the influence that we have on all players, not just the best ones. So I thought that was really good. A couple tips that, and I love how you talked about how you were the player that was screamed at. And you went back to the coach and you were like, Matz. Like, you just picture this coach. I thought that was really powerful. I thought that was great. The one thing though, when you were talking about that, Phil Jackson, I don't know if you got a chance, on page 33, when they introduced the emotional tank, Phil Jackson talks about how he did something similar with Horace Grant. He kind of elicited permission from Horace Grant. Like, do you mind if I ride you a little bit? Because I know you can handle it. I know you're a tough guy. But what he found is that it was actually draining his tank. Like, even though he figured Horace can take it. He's a military family. He's got it. It drained his tank. So when you were talking about how your coach said to you, I knew you could handle it. That's why I did it. And you could handle it at the time, but I would love to see you kind of, because that sort of defeats the purpose of the E-Tank. If you say, if a player that can handle it, you're allowed to drain his tank, you're allowed to be negative. It's kind of like counterproductive to what you're saying. So, but I think, even just put yourself in your own shoes back then. If that coach who was tough on you sometimes realized that and was really positive and filled your tank, how much better would you have been?
Yeah.
You know, and I think of that a lot too, because I played 3 sports too. I played basketball. I had the most negative coach ever in basketball. I was a freshman playing varsity, and he was on me all the time, just screaming, yelling, how could you miss that? How could you miss that layup? Blah, blah, blah. You're out. Sit the bench. And then I went to my lacrosse season, and I had the most positive coach ever. And I exploded in lacrosse because I felt valuable. I felt like I could try things and take risks. Every year when it came to basketball season, I was like stressed out. Like I knew I wanted to play because I like basketball. But I mean, I think I could have been a much better basketball player had I had a coach that actually let me play instead of screaming at me all the
my
time.
high school coach, he was very positive with me as well, especially when it came to baseball, because he coached more so in basketball. He yelled at me a lot because we weren't very good in basketball.
And success.
And
That's why you brought that up. It's easy to coach.
And I think that's why I had more success in baseball, because he was more positive in baseball.
Yeah.
You know, I love playing basketball, and I love coaching basketball, but I mean, I think that's one reason why I was more successful in baseball, is because there was more of that positive influence than always getting yelled at.
Yeah.
You know, even though he was positive to me in basketball as well, but you know,
it was the same coach.
It was the same coach.
Yeah.
You know,
now
so,
that to me is a good story. That's a great story for your workshops. He was hard on you in basketball, and baseball is the same guy. He was more positive. You ended up being more successful in baseball. I think that's the part of the story that really blends into the principle and the point. Because as soon as I hear you say some kids can handle it, I'm like, ooh, then somebody's going to be like, well, I can be tough on him because he can handle it. But I think the point is, and I like your point, is to know your players. And the way I say it is, instead of some kids can handle it, I always say you've got to know what fills each kid's tank. You know, some kids, it might just be like a thumbs up or like keep going or like a pod. Some kid might actually need you to come over and, you know, put your arm around him and go, you know what? I know that was tough, but get back out there. Somebody else might be like, coach, I don't need that. Just let me go. You know, so you're knowing what fills your players' tanks and what doesn't. I think that's kind of the point you were making, but I'd like to see it, you know, in a more positive way.
Gotcha.
The other thing that I wanted you to bring up, because you brought it up, was listening. That part about listening to players as a tank filler. One of the things that I was challenged on about a year or so ago, and I always bring it up now, is if you're coaching like 8-year-olds, how do you listen? Like if an 8-year-old comes out of the game, it's easy for high school kids. Yeah. And I like your point. Like they're out there on the field. How do you have an 8-year-old come out of the game and say, what do you think? What kind of defense do you think we should do? Should we stay in man-to-man or should we go to zone? Yeah. Like, you know, because you're going to be talking to a lot of young youth coaches. Yeah. So I coached high school and college for years. And then when I started doing these workshops for youth coaches, a lot of my examples, I was like, yeah, that's not really going to work with youth coaches. So really, so how can you listen? It's still the concept is listening to fill tanks. So how can you use that tool of listening to a player without saying, you know, without listening to his coaching advice necessarily? Yeah. So what would you say? How would you feel that?
I would say with younger kids, just listen to what they're saying, on maybe of how they're feeling. Yeah. You know, what their ticks are, and then you maybe learn of how you can fill their tank even better. Yeah. You know, because you might just talking to them get an idea of what things you're saying that might lead them to drain their tank. Yeah. Opposed to filling their tank. You know, because it might be just something simple that you're saying, and you don't realize it's having a different effect on that kid as it is somebody else. Yeah. But just by listening to that kid and understanding where they're coming from. Yeah. Because you're not going to get the game pointers of, oh, coach, we need to do this from an 8-year-old. You're right. You're not going to get that.
Exactly. But you know what you do get, and I use this as my example. I had, you know, coaching youth girls lacrosse, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, and I had my best player. I'd always have her marking the best player on the other team. And like first couple games in, she was getting really discouraged because she was getting beat. And I brought her out and I was like, Lainey, how you doing? How you feeling? She goes, coach, I just cannot stay with that girl. And it stuck in my head. Like I wanted to encourage her and be like, yes, you can. You're my best player. You're so fast. Yeah. I wanted to do that. But instead I was like, all right, coach, put her on somebody that can give her some success. You know, let her just put her in for 10 minutes against somebody that she will see that she's stronger than. So that was the way I kind of used listening, like kind of keying in, like, of course you put your best player on the other team's best player. That's what you do. Yeah. But it was really discouraging her because she's usually so strong, and she wasn't able to catch or throw the ball either. Like it really crumbled her. So, you know, I put her back in later after she got her confidence back on the best girl, and she did well. But, you know, anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. The other thing too, the slide is actually wrong. And I didn't realize I have 2 different versions of this, and I think I sent you the wrong one. Under what drains the tank, it says nonverbals. Under what fills the tank, it's also supposed to say nonverbals.
Gotcha.
I think yours said verbals on it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just a typo.
verbal.
Yeah, that's a typo. It's supposed to say nonverbals on both. So it's actually, I mean, it actually could be verbal and nonverbal on both, but that's what it's supposed to, because there's nonverbals you can do to fill too, you know, like smiling and high fives and all that. So Brian, I'm excited. I'm excited. My question for you is, how far are you willing to travel to do these workshops? Because I'm just looking at where you're at and I'm like, whoo, he's out there.
It depends on when it is and where it's at.
Okay.
Really.
Okay.
I don't know because I do want to go to one, obviously.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to one somewhere.
Yeah.
And what is the closest one to me? Would it be Chicago or?
You know, it's funny because I was looking at where you are, and we're opening up a chapter in Nashville coming up soon too. Like, you're not that far away from, you're considered out of territory. So out of territory means there could be workshops. We have workshops all over the country. Like, we have workshops in Montana that are, you know, somebody just grabs a hold and says, I want to do this. The hard thing is, and I always tell Ruben whenever and I'm glad you're on board, but when you train somebody that's from an area like yours, there isn't like a workshop every weekend that you can run to. So hopefully there will be soon as we keep growing. That's how these other chapters have grown. We've had so many people in like Austin, Texas that have become partners, and now we're starting an Austin, Texas chapter. So there's hope for it to expand to your area. But I'd have to take a look and see kind of where you are. And Keenan is the one, he's in Chicago. He's in the course too. I don't know if you've seen him, but he's in Chicago, and he's also in charge of the out of territory workshops. So he'd probably be able to give you a better idea of when we can get you to workshops. But you know, you're strong, and I'd love to have you out there doing these workshops. And we do have trainers that travel. I mean, we have a guy from Charlotte, North Carolina, Bob McKinnon. He was an NBA coach, and he's good. And so every once in a while, you know, we'll fly him somewhere if he's, you know, if we've got a big basketball partner.
I don't mind doing that at all, especially during the summer.
So that's what I was going to say. What is your availability more in the summer?
During the summer is the best. You know, and I don't know when the workshops are. Are they usually on the weekends, or they during the week?
Mostly on the weekends. It's funny. I mean, our business is seasonal, like sports. So we usually do the bulk of our workshops right before the season. So August is really busy. November is busy. And then March are our 3 busiest times, because it's right before fall, right before winter, right before spring season. Summer usually slows down a little bit. However, it's been ramping up a lot in July and August just to get ready for the preseason for high schools and things like that. So usually August is our busiest month, all across the board. So if that's good for you, and we can let you know where workshops are. And
it's fine. Like I said, my buddy, he works for the baseball factory, and I do stuff with them, and I would do more with them if I could, with the traveling. But since I'm so far from St. Louis, I'm 2 hours from St. Louis, from the first closest airport, basically.
Okay.
And the problem is not the leaving part; it's the coming back part.
Okay.
You know, if I get back on a Sunday evening at midnight, well, I'm not getting home till 2 o'clock almost in the morning.
Right.
You know, and then I've got to get up and go to work on Monday.
Yeah.
You know, that's the, you know, so depending on when the workshops are and stuff like that, you know, on the weekends, I don't know if you do them on Saturdays or if they're done on Sunday.
It depends. It depends where it is.
If there's one done on Saturday, I have no problems leaving, you know, later on a Friday night.
Okay.
And doing a workshop on a Saturday, and then being able to, you know, if I can come back Saturday night, fine. Or if I come back Sunday, not a big deal.
Okay.
My kick is I just don't want to get back at midnight on a Sunday.
Right. I got
it. Have to get up at 6 a.m. to go to work on Monday.
Yeah, I hear you. Now, are you're a teacher right now?
Yes.
You're a high school teacher?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're off in the summers pretty much?
Off in the summer.
Okay. All right. Well, I will, I'll let you know. I'll connect you with Keenan. We'll try to find out what we can do. Sonia DeWitt is our trainer manager. So because you'll be considered an associate trainer right now. So the first step is to get you out to a live workshop with a certified trainer, so that you can do part of, like, you do half and they do half, and they just kind of watch you. That will probably be all you need to do for certification to be able to go out and do these. But as I said, because you're not in an area where there's a lot of workshops to go, like in San Francisco, we've got workshops going all the time. So the people out there can just pick and choose. They're certified within a week usually, because they have so many workshops to pick from.
I'm going to be out in I'll have to talk to my wife and see what she thinks about this.
She'll be like, no, this is our vacation.
I am out. I'm going to be in Napa on the 7th through the 12th
Okay.
of July. So I don't know if I could sneak away for a little while,
Okay.
and just see a little bit of the I may not be able to see the whole thing, but just kind
Yeah.
of get a idea of what it is and stuff. And I don't know how long they usually last. I don't know, since I haven't been to one, how long
Yeah.
do they usually last?
Usually 2 hours. That's from
2 hours?
beginning to end, from by the time the people come in till the time they walk out. Usually they're about 90
Okay.
minutes, 90 minutes of the actual workshop. But I usually say
Okay.
give yourself 2 hours. And
Okay.
yeah, I mean, that would probably be more likely that could happen out there.
Okay.
I can check the schedule and see. I'll just let you know if it works for your schedule. All the workshops that we do,